Well, hello everyone, welcome back. I'm your friend InSexO, and right now, as I said before, I will try to learn the authority matching inside of the Spring Boot framework, and that's why I did this search. As you could say, we got a series of links out there, but I'll just get into the first link. From there, we can say we got a documentation for this problem. It's called Securing a Web Application. This guide will walk you through the process of creating a simple web application with resources that are protected by Spring Security. And what you will build is a Spring MVC application so what is MVC right in here? The M means model, the V means view, and the C means control. In other words, you have to define your model first. The model is a digital representation of your problem or anything you want to operate with in the real world. Then the way means the view, which is a web page in this case. But I guess for recent software development, you won't do the web development inside of the Java. That's not a good idea. And beside of that, we got the controller, which is indeed the operate processing that will manipulate your models, your data, something like that. It says that if we want to follow this tutorial, we'll have to download the packaging or the project from those links. But I don't want to do that. I just want to know the theory behind of that. That would be enough. So let's say the first is as create an unsecured web application, and this is HTML code. And we could say we got a click button right in here. We got the click button, and yeah, let's go on. This click button will link to the hello page, which is another web page right in here. So this application is based on Spring MVC. As a result, you need to configure Spring MVC and set up view controller to expose these templates. The following listing is the MVC configuration. Why? I know that it's the configuration code, right? Because there we have a decorator called configuration. That's why. And here we got a function. It somehow links all those controller with the view, but it's not secured, so we do not see any authority matching inside of those code, but we're about to set it up. Here we got another item called setup Spring Security. From there, of course, first we need to have some packaging that included to the project. This is how you do it with a grid. I guess every one of you, if you have ever used the Android Studio, you should be quite familiar with this file. But if you don't, that was okay, because some of you may also use a Maven. This is another dependency management software, and if you do that, if you do the development with a Maven, you have to add those dependencies into your dependence declararization. And after that, let's get into the security version of all those code. And I guess what it does is just add another declarator to it. It's called enable web security. And from there, we get some code. For example, authorities requests and matchers permits all any request is authenticated, but for the phone login it cannot different. Let's say this is quite hard to understand. I don't know what it means. So let's just read the description for it. The web security configure class is annotated with enable web security to enable the Spring Security's web security support and provide the Spring MVC integration. It also extends the web security configurator adapter and overrides a couple of its methods to set some specifics of the web security configuration. Yes, I know that. That's how they did it. They add a decorator out there. In Python, we call it decorator, but in Java, they seems to be more likely to call it annotation. That was the difference between the Python and the Java. The configure HTTP security method defines which URL paths should be secured and which should not. Specifically the slash, I guess it's called a slash, but I'm not very sure about that.
斜杠 slash.
Yeah, it's called slash, and the slash home paths are configured to not require any authentication. All other paths must be authenticated. When a user successfully logs in, they are redirected to the previously requested page that required authentication. There is a custom /login page which is specified by the login page, and everyone is allowed to view it. The user details service method sets up an in-memory user stone with a single user. That user is given a username of user, a password of password, and a row of user. Now you need to create the login page. There is already a view controller for the login view. So you need to only create the login view itself as the following. Yeah, we could say that action is called a login. And what does that matter? You know, what it's, how about this? We got the authorized requests. That's her.
Authorize requests.
Authorized requests. All right. Okay, finally I understand all those parts. You know, here for the authorized requests, we permit all requests that lead to the home page, and we will default it to be authenticated, which means that we don't have to log in to check the home page. That's this part of code does. That's what they does. And for the second block, or let's say for the second code block, it says that for the login page, we do not require the user to log in. We will permit all of them because we want the user to log in. We don't want it to be blocked somehow. And also for the logout request, we also permit all, so that any URL that does not equal to this or equal to this, it is not allowed to check without login. For example, here it says that here we got a simple link here. This link will lead you to the hello page. However, because that page is secured and you have not yet logged in, it will take you to the login page as the following image. So I guess that's how it works, because we didn't define the hello in any of this URL, which means we have to log in to be able to check that page. Even though now I know how can they do that authentication, one thing that I do not know is how he implemented the login logic with the MVC framework or design pattern. So I'll try to download it. What it looks like. So here we got the security web application for this file. We do not have so much code out there. For the MVC configure, we still do not have that much code. And how about the web security configuration? Okay, that's interesting. So we don't have any else code, but the HTML code and the 3 files are there. This is too simple. Now I'm going to run this file to see how it works. Okay, we got an error. It says that port 8080 was already in use. Well, that means we will have to start the whole application in another port. Yeah, how can we do that? Alright, we could. For example, if we have the application properties file, we could specify the port. And that file should be put inside of the resources folder. Alright, now let me run it again. Okay, if we didn't get anything wrong, we would see this page. And if we click the here link, it will lead us to the login page. And if we input some written string, just some written string, I don't care the value of it, then if we hit the sign in we'll get an error. It says invalid user and password. So what is the correct one? Where we have defined that? If we go to the not in there. Okay. If we go to the web security configuration file, we will see a function like this, user detail service. Inside of this one, this code, we have defined the username with user, the password with password. I don't know if that will work or not, so let me try it out. user password. If we click the same button, it's working. We got the hello page available for us. So this is where the user account and password come from. This is too simple. This is definitely not the real usage for the host matching, but it's some kind of showcase for you guys to see how easy we could make a user system with the Spring Boot framework. You know what? For this simple application, we have used the user detail service. We have returned that object. But in the real project, this one, we also have returned this object. So what is this object? Why it is so important to us? If we get into it, we see some weird stuff. Load user by user len. Oh, what is that? I don't know. Here we got a account service. We got an account service. This seems to be a class that was defined by ourselves. So if we get into it, oh, sorry, it's right here. So if we get into it, I think this is a class that was created by ourselves. It should be in somewhere. Power account service. Here we can see the power account mapper. I didn't see the service yet. Okay, here we go. We get the power account service implementation. But before we get into the implementation, let's first look at its functions. For example, get by len, get that user by len, or refresh the token and do a count to say if that user is being taken or not, and also register an account. And we also have the login function, which will take the user len and its password. Anyway, all kinds of functions that related to that account. Now let's get into the implementation of that account service. If we get into it, we will say that for get that account by len, it's just an operation to read the database and get out the user's information. For the token refresh, it will invoke the GWT token utils. This is probably a util that was written by ourselves. I don't know. Maybe. Okay. So if we want to do the development, we could reuse this utils. We don't have to write it totally by ourselves. So that's cool. Let's forget about it and go on. Okay, here for the user registrant, what we do is just add another record in our database, especially for the user table. And for the login function, what it does is first load that user by the user len. Then it will do the check to say if the password they give us matches the database version of the password. If it match, we say that it's okay for doing that. If it's not match, we will do something else. For example, give it an error. But here they have used the token. The technique of talking, we will use this a lot. But since this is a, let's say, mature technique, so normally we don't have to write it by ourselves. All we have to do is to invoke some libraries, I guess. Alright, let's back to the logic, back to the very beginning. But somewhere, let's say, should be in somewhere. Okay, security, hospital security configuration, right in there. So basically for the whole authentication, it's all based on this function. That's weird. Maybe it's not that weird, but this is how we do it. Okay, maybe in the next video or in the next project that I make, I have to do some experiment with this, or if I make a new project, I've used Java, especially the Spring Boot, to do the, let's say, to make the user system. Okay, now we got this function, and what else we need to do? I just want to say, let's go to each controller to say if they have the if they have this configure right in there, they should have it. Okay, it seems like they do not have a static configuration. Somehow, instead he chose to implement the whole security in a dynamic way. And what I mean is, if you go to the application.yml configuration, you would say here we got the secure, ignore URLs. For all those URLs inside of this list, it does not require the authentication, which means you don't have to log in to be able to visit those URLs. Okay guys, I just found that I made some mistakes. So here for the hospital security configure, it is indeed extends from this class or inherited from that class. And for that class, if we get into it, this is also a class that was created by ourselves. And inside of that class, we got this function, configure function. What this function does is to configure which URLs needs the authentication and which don't. And from here, you could see all those stuffs right in there. Even though something that I have no idea what they are doing, but this is it. For example, for all those URLs inside of the ignore URL configuration, which is all those URL inside of this list, we will say register that and merges those URL and permits them all so that it won't require our authentication. And for the cross-region request, we also permit it. Then anything else needs the authentication. And I guess this function, what this function does is to say that this page or this API requires you to be authenticated before you use it. And here we can say multiple function called AND. For each AND, it will try to add a series of new comments that are related to the signature. For this one, CSRF, what we do is to disable the cross-region protection or something like that. And for this one, it will be define the exception handling. And we're gonna define how we handle those exceptions. So for each end, this is a new, let's say, command, something like that. But in here, we do it with the Java code, function connected to function. By doing so, we would always be able to have the auto completion enabled. That was good. So that's it. That's today's video. And inside of this video, we have learned about how can we use the Spring Boot authentication functionality to do the authentication. Even though we didn't do it totally by ourselves, but we still learned something, right? And so if the next time if you start your project, at least you would have some idea about what you're gonna do, what kind of keyword that you can search to get the right information from the internet. And I think that's it. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.